Hello and welcome back to the channel. 2023 was an amazing year for games, but we're not done yet. There are plenty more amazing looking games just around the corner in 2024. I've put together a list of 5 games that I'm really excited for next year. Let me know what games you're looking forward to down in the comments, and we'll start with Dragon's Dogma 2. So the original Dragon's Dogma was a game that unfortunately I just tried to get into, I think, a little bit too late. I thought the premise of the game was really cool, you know, these amazing RPG mechanics, an awesome open world, lots and lots of content, but by the time I tried to play it, I just found the game just a little bit too clunky. So I'm really hoping that with Dragon's Dogma 2 there's going to be a game there that I find really appealing and also is a bit more modern and a bit easier to play. Just like in the first game, it seems that there's going to be a huge open world to explore this amazing looking fantasy world, and from watching the trailers I'm really excited by the combat. I mean, seriously, there's some awesome looking spells and abilities that just look like there'd be loads of fun to use. And of course the monsters in this game look absolutely incredible. The monsters and how you fight these sort of like giant beasts are really, you know, kind of one of the main selling points of the Dragon's Dogma, the first game and now the second game as well. The first game had just so many quests, and also it was really beloved for just how much there was to do in sort of the post game once you completed the main story. Apparently the game just opened up even more and there was an absolute ton of extra content to do, and I'm really hoping that the same is true for this game. I've just heard from so many people how good Dragon's Dogma is that alone has made me so excited for Dragon's Dogma 2 in 2024. When it comes to my early gaming years, there was a lot of influence there through Nintendo, and that's because of the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance. I spent a lot of time playing both of those handhelds when I was growing up. But in terms of Nintendo home consoles, I didn't really get into the Nintendo home consoles at all. My first one was actually the Wii. I never had a GameCube or an SNES or N64 or anything like that. So this means that by the time I was actually able to get my hands on a Paper Mario game, I think most people would say that the series had kind of had its peak, and by the time, you know, I think the Wii one was okay, but especially after that, I think a lot of people, a lot of fans in particular, would say that the Paper Mario series was going downhill by then. I have tried to play the more modern ones, Origami King on the Switch in particular, but I did always wonder if I would enjoy these sort of more RPG-like Paper Mario games, and especially Thousand Year Door, which I kept hearing was supposed to be the best one in the series. Like, I think everyone else, I was really surprised when Nintendo revealed the remake of Thousand Year Door, but I was very excited. Even though I've just kind of said that the more recent Paper Mario games probably aren't as good as the older ones, there's still a lot of elements in there that I like. There's a lot of comedy that I enjoy in those games. I really like how they sort of cleverly make, you know, different objects, houses, boats, that kind of thing out of paper. I really love that, exploring those worlds. It just so happened to be that I wasn't that into the mechanics, the core gameplay of the modern Paper Mario games, but with Thousand Year Door being much more of a sort of traditional RPG, I'm much more excited to try that out. I think it's more likely to be my kind of thing. Not to mention, on top of that, Nintendo sort of was able to branch out and make a lot of the side characters more interesting than just being, you know, like generic toes all the time. They had different personalities, and we did see a little bit of that with Origami King, but I think I would enjoy it a lot more in Thousand Year Door, where all the characters are like that. I think there's a really good chance that we see a Switch successor next year, but in the meantime I am very much looking forward to this game. So the next game is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and honestly I think this game looks like it's going to be a fantastic start to the year for Ubisoft. Metroidvanias can be a little bit hit and miss for me sometimes. Some of them I really get into, some of them I really don't get into. I couldn't exactly tell you why it is that I get into one and don't get into the other one. It might just be sort of the luck of the draw, but in this case I think the Lost Crown seems to have so much effort and care put into it that I think it looks like it's going to be a really good Metroidvania, and I'm really interested in it. First of all, I think that the art style looks really amazing, you know, that sort of painterly rendered effect. I think that the backdrops to this 2D side-scrolling game look incredible, but on top of that, you know, the characters themselves and the monsters, especially some of the bosses, look really good. But then the gameplay has to be good as well, right? And I kind of think that from what we've seen so far, it does look like it's going to be really cool. The combat, you know, the swordplay, it looks really slick, fast-paced. You sort of are able to slide and jump around, and there are some time powers that I think are just going to add sort of like another level onto the sort of skills that you can pull off. One of these time powers in particular seems to be a skill where you can sort of zip back to where you were a couple of seconds ago, and it just kind of feels like, you know, with this combat and these time powers, once you get really good at this game and you're sort of interweaving the time powers with the combat, it feels like you're going to be able to do some amazing combos that just make you feel like such a skilled player. That I think always is really good when a game makes you feel like that, and Prince of Persia The Lost Crown does seem to have the potential to allow you to do that. I have to say it's been quite a while since I've been like really excited for a game from Ubisoft, but Lost Crown definitely has my attention for the start of next year. Now, Final Fantasy 16, it wasn't quite what I wanted it to be earlier in the year, but I did have a really good time when I played Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and so I'm really excited for the next installment, which is Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. I didn't play the original Final Fantasy 7 back in the day, but at this point I do kind of know most of the story, so I'm really interested to see, what's going to stay the same and what's going to change. There's quite a lot of mystery around it at the moment. What's going to happen with Zack? Is he going to be a big part of this game rather than, in the old Crisis Core, he died at the end of it? Is that going to stay the same? Is it going to change? And in the trailers as well, they've sort of alluded to Sephiroth having killed Tifa in sort of the past, and so Sephiroth's kind of wondering who it is that's now traveling with Cloud. And of course, the big question, what's going to happen to Aerith? I'm really excited to get some answers to these questions. The game will also see us leaving Midgard, and the world will sort of open up a bit. I'm not sure if it's going to be a full open world. Maybe it'll be zones that you can look around, but I'm really hoping there'll be lots of places to explore, lots of secrets to find, areas to discover, and maybe extra activities to do. The trailer does seem to show 1 or 2 mini games, so that's kind of promising, but I would like to have, quite a variety of things to do. There wasn't so much in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and so I'm hoping that might be like just a small change that they make for Rebirth, just to give a little bit more variety. And of course, the combat looks bigger and better than ever. I really like the combat in Final Fantasy VII Remake, this sort of mix of real-time action combat with interwoven turn-based spellcasting mechanics. I thought that was really good. I think it worked. It brought the combat a bit more into the sort of modern era of games. Swapping characters, choosing abilities and spells, I'm ready for more of it, and I'm really eager to sort of get my hands on some more characters to play in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth next year. Now, as a pretty big Star Wars fan, I'm really excited by the idea of a Star Wars game that revolves around the criminal underworld. This, I think, is the first Star Wars game in a really long time that's not been made by EA, and so I'm hoping that a lot of care and effort is being put into this one in order to sort of secure the licensing of this massive franchise going forward. This one is made by Ubisoft, and I said before I was surprised to have a Ubisoft game in the list. Well, now there's 2. Not only that, they're actually quite high up on this list. I think both of those games are probably in the top 3 that I am excited for next year. I think it will be fun to tackle stealth in Star Wars again. I did really like the Jedi Fallen Order game. I haven't played Jedi Survivor yet, but I think it'll just be nice to play a character who isn't a Jedi, can't just hack and slash their way through everything, sometimes has to stealth. I think that the gunplay looks really cool in this. I like the idea of how you can sort of interact with the pet, send it out to bring weapons back to you, and honestly the pet just looks adorable by itself, and that's already a bit of a selling point for a lot of people, isn't it? The speed of gameplay looks fast and fun, and when you get into your ship and you leave the planet, it almost seems like after a very first quick cutscene getting into the air, it almost looks like you're able to control yourself flying all the way up out of the planet's atmosphere and into space, which is kind of what I was hoping for from Starfield, so maybe this game will sort of draw my interest in that space element a little bit more, and even then the actual space combat looks a lot of fun in this game. The mechanic shown in one of the trailers of having either good or bad standing with various factions in the Star Wars universe, it just seems to work for Star Wars. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially if you're part of the criminal underworld. You're gonna have people that you get on their bad side and people you get on their good side as you sort of go about your business and make your mark on the galaxy. And having some choices that revolve around this will be a welcome change as well. It's not too clear yet if this is going to be a big open game or if it's going to be a bit more linear, but either way I think as long as they've written a good story and they've written good characters, then sign me up for this game and many more Star Wars games like this. So those were the 5 games that I am most excited for next year. What did you think of my picks? Are there some you agree with, some you disagree with? Let me know what you think down in the comments, and make sure to put the games that you're really excited for next year in there as well. Thank you so much for watching, Happy New Year, and I hope to see you in the next episode.